Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of our Barber's Brief. If you're a new listener, Mark and I like to use this forum to discuss things that have caught our eye. Sorry, I'm wording today. Caught our eye over the last couple of weeks, including news, articles, our marketing moment, but probably our most favorite segment, which is Ad of the Week. Mark, good afternoon. How are you, my friend?
It's a different energy. You've said this before, right? In the afternoon. We usually record like fucking early in the morning. It's very different. It's great. I like this afternoon.
We can
energy.
see the sun. We have sun.
That's true. There is sun outside. It's really cool. I mean, for about 3 years of the podcast, I only saw darkness because I had no light.
You had no light. Such a fair point.
I found out there was a sun, and now I can actually see it.
It exists. It exists.
Yeah. Well,
right. We have in the news, and I know you're kicking us off. What did you find?
It's funny. We've been talking a little bit about product market fit, market expansion, filling new revenue gaps, all those kinds of things more and more lately. Pepsi buys Poppi for almost $2 billion. Just happened this week.
Crazy.
Yeah. So really cool. Like a little bit of backstory in this. Pepsi, everybody knows Pepsi, but it's a giant brand. They have Frito-Lay, and there's obviously a lot of the soft drinks and things that they have. Their sales have been declining over the last few years.
Mm-hmm. We've
talked a little bit in the past also about how Dr. Pepper's eaten their lunch, which is kind of really amazing that's picking up as much as they had. And we had a case study. I think that was one of the case studies on their brand.
It was a marketing moment.
Yeah. And so along comes this Poppi drink, which is in the carbonated soft drinks segment, which is CSD for all the kids in the inside track. Poppi was on Shark Tank in 2018, which I think is part of what made it famous to some degree. I think they had a name change in there. It went from Mothers to Poppi, but they currently hold about a 1% share of the CSD market. It's a more health conscious product, like a prebiotic soda, low sugar. And it's really picked up a lot of steam with younger demos who are shifting to more fitness and lifestyle products. So for Pepsi, really nice fit, nice pickup, I would say. Great free agent signing.
I didn't know they were a free agent. But yeah, no, I think that's a great point. It's sometimes when you have a gap, fill it with something that already exists instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, right? So there's enough equity already built into this. Obviously, their valuation, Jesus, it's quite high, which is insane. Yeah, I think you're right in terms of Pepsi kind of, I don't know, falling out of flavor or favor. I don't know. A little bit.
What you did there. Look at you and your wording. It's going well.
Now it's okay. I'm fired up right now, man. I'm telling you. Yeah, I think you're right. It's a great pickup. I think I'll be interesting to see how that actually continues to build momentum with the audience. I've never had a can of Poppi. I don't know if you have, but
I haven't had ones like it. But I've seen it around more and more recently. But I haven't had that one. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you got, V?
Well, the death of attention economy.
Oh yeah. It's about time something died.
Right? It's been a few weeks. It's been a few weeks since we as practitioners killed off something. But I think you and I both came across this article at some point, and I think we both kind of shook our heads a little bit. But and I was struggling a little bit. Like, do we give this attention? Do we not give this attention?
Yeah, why not?
I think we should. So here it is. There's a gentleman by the name of RJ Abbott. He's the founder of, I guess, an agency or a company called Cult Member. I mean, seems very cult-like, but okay. But the author argues that brand awareness is an outdated and an ineffective marketing approach.
Okay.
That was like literally the TLDR of all this. So he goes into claims a lot of the traditional marketing focuses on too much on the visibility and reach side of the spectrum, but mere awareness isn't enough in today's oversaturated digital environment. So instead, he advocates for building brand devotion. It's what he's calling his thing, which is then looking to create those devoted followers who believe in brand rather than just, recognizing it. So he contrasts traditional awareness strategies with devotion approaches by building immersive brand worlds instead of positioning, creating rituals and mythology instead of just being recognized, and emphasizing exclusivity over accessibility. Now, the piece likes to cite Apple, Rolex, Liquid Death as examples of companies that actually don't rely on traditional awareness, if you will, but instead have cultivated more of those devoted followings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole, and we'll obviously link to the article. Have a feel free to have a read. It's created quite a bit of a stir in some people supporting this, others outright just kind of laughing at it, like James Herman did, and saying nope.
His comment was awesome.
Which was
it literally said, haha, nope.
Nope. So I thought that was really funny. But here's my take on it and why I don't believe this works. And I'd love your take on this as well. I think there's a false dichotomy. So the article itself presents brand awareness and devotion as mutually exclusive concepts when they're actually more complementary than they are exclusive. So brand awareness is a necessary first step in any consumer relationship before people can become more devoted, if you want to use that term. The second thing, I think the very purposeful in him, the author, doing so is really cherry pick those examples. You're talking about really high luxury or premium brands like an Apple, a Rolex, that operate in very specific market segments. This does not apply to the 90% or even B2B context as very well. So you can't create that same level of devotion, if you would, in a more traditional context. So I feel like this favors a very small subset of advertisers versus actually appealing to the broader spectrum. And there's also a misrepresentation of marketing basics. He goes on to suggest traditional marketing is only about visibility, but I think that ignores the comprehensive brand strategies that have always included emotional connection and differentiation. So this is the three areas that I think this kind of falls a little bit flat. But I'd love your take on this.
Yeah, I weirdly enough, I had a year ago. It was probably right when I was laid off. Still, I had a lot of time on my head, so I did an analysis on brand love, and I linked that in the comments to him and asked him for his thoughts on it. So the thing about this is it comes up all the time, right? Like brand love. There's a book called Love Marks, and there's a few comments in there. There's this idea that brand loyalty is the path to growth. That's the whole thing around a lot of the Kotler textbook, and costs 5 times as much to make a customer as does to keep a customer, and blah 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 blah. The trouble with all of that is that those are just words. There's no evidence for any of it. And so in the analysis that I did, there's this part, and a lot of the, I shamelessly stole from the Ehrenberg Bass Institute and the publications that they've done. But there's this idea of like, if brand love is the path to growth, then you would expect to see is like high CSAT scores correlated to high revenue scores.
Exactly.
Right? So that should be a telltale sign. And the analysis that I did, I looked at North American Airlines, I looked at U.S. grocery retailers, and then I thought there was one other one. There was another one that I found, but it was American automotive dealers. Revenue looks like a long tail, like the biggest company, like Walmart is a U.S. grocery retailer, is really big. On North American Airlines, Delta is really big. Relatively speaking, WestJet is really small. So you have like these long tails of size of company, revenue, but then their customer service scores are flat across the board. There's not really any much change. And then the other thing that's really interesting to me is that part of the problem is when we think about loyalty and that kind of thing, it largely is affected by the time frame when we measure it. So if you look in a day, like today, I was 100% loyal to the Vietnamese restaurant I went to.
That's exactly
right. But if you look at my whatever you want to call it, what is it? QSR is the category or whatever.
Yeah.
Quick service restaurant. If you look at my QSR shopping over the month or the year, my loyalty goes from 100% on that Vietnamese restaurant to maybe like 2%.
You're not monogamous, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're QS.
Yeah. And I might be monogamous to like Vietnamese, but I might be going to like multiple different kinds of Vietnamese.
You bring up such a great point. And I think this is where sometimes our discipline creates like this really weird subset, because you can have people that kind of subscribe to one notion. But the reality is, I think what's missing is we need to constantly root ourselves in the fundamentals. And that's why evidence-based marketing becomes important. Thinking about things like mental availability, it matters. Physical availability is important. It's really crucial that we look at that. The balance between short and long-term metrics. And then finally, even the value of category entry points.
Totally.
You can't look at that list there and say, this is not the way we should be approaching. And I see that as a way of like, this is the core fundamentals of marketing that each of us need to be doing well. And you want to talk about it from a devotion perspective. Other people want to talk about loyalty.
Yeah.
You do you, but the fundamentals are the fundamentals.
Yeah.
I don't care how you spend them.
I'm with you. The evidence can't be that there's a tattoo of a Harley Davidson on somebody's skin. Like
exactly.
That's not the evidence we're talking about. Like that happens, sure. Like just like that one tattoo, no regrets.
Exactly.
They misspelled. That's evidence of stupidity, but or a bad speller. But yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of holes in that. But equally there's a lot of people that believe it, which is why I think it's worth talking about.
Exactly. Anyways, we went a little bit longer than I wanted to on this.
But it's a good topic.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
What do you have next?
Tariffs.
Oh, I love this
forever and ever.
Canada. No?
Yeah. Well, it kind of actually does have something to do with that. So there's I found this in the Globe and Mail. There's a brand in Canada called Elmer's, and Elmer Soup. So they got in a bit of hot water because they were trying to like play off of the made in Canada kind of thing. It is a made in Canada product. They have a lot of their raw material like tomatoes and potatoes or whatever goes in their soup is coming from Canada.
Right.
So along with the 25% tariffs, they're like, okay, well, we can get people eating soup. And then the original idea was, it's better than I'm describing it, but people spitting up when they get the announcement that the tariffs are here and there's 25% tariffs on everything. So they see the notice of 25% tariffs and then they're spitting out, they're choking on their soup kind of thing, but spitting it out.
Okay.
The original commercial had people watching like a TV and an iPad and a phone and that kind of stuff. But the imagery on those devices was of like the White House or the American flag or whatever. And so then they were spitting up on the TV, but it happened to be on the American flag, on the White House. And so these symbols of American ideology. So they got in a whole bunch of hot water for that.
Yeah.
So they were trying to do some of the things right, like be funny, use humor in advertising, showcase their product and product in use and all those kinds of things. But it ended up becoming an issue because of they had to pull down the ad because
obviously
like there's legal, I forget the name of the law, but there's
like defamation.
Something to that effect. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so they corrected the video and then they replaced the U.S. images with like the backdrop of a mountain and a Canadian flag. And so we can spit up on our own flag, but that's okay. But anyway, it was one of those things where it was kind of an interesting story. I think more and more people are probably going to do that. And more Canadian marketers, I should say, are probably going to do that. Maybe even in the States too, where they're going to promote more of the American patriotism angle on some of the products made in America. Like everywhere around the world might actually start doing that if these tariffs become a global thing.
Totally.
But there are downsides. Is mostly the reason why I wanted to bring that up. And so there's a couple things that might be worth checking on before you go on the ad.
Yeah. Pause, reflect, talk to legal.
Mm-hmm.
They're your friends in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
What else you got?
Yeah, the last one that I found, I know I've been talking about retail media networks for quite some time, and I came across this article on Marketing Dive, actually, that I think kind of examines both the current state and some of the challenges retail media networks are facing. And just thought, like, we're still early enough in 2025 where I think it's important that as practitioners, we kind of look at that. So it was comparing a little bit like Amazon ads as a part of this. So Amazon ads, I would argue, have one of like the largest retail media networks.
Sure. Yeah.
Generating over 47 billion in 2023.
They're doing okay.
That's not too shabby. I mean, hey, Amazon, you want to sponsor us?
That'd be great.
Selfish plug. Anyways.
And by the way, for anyone else interested in sponsoring a podcast, not just Amazon, we'd work with multiple advertisers.
We work with multiple.
Yeah.
And when you think about the second place was Walmart, we only captured 3.4 billion. I'm sorry.
Only.
That sounds, I'm sorry.
They're barely making a go of it.
Yeah. They're so like startup phase still. But anyways, so it does seem like there's still a lot of investment that's happening in these retail media networks, which is, again, it's why a lot of people still believe in them fundamentally. The key challenges, however, that keep coming up is there's a lack of automation in most retail media networks, except Amazon. Amazon does have some automation. There's poor measurement capabilities, particularly on the in-store impact. So we know as advertisers, those especially that have the offline footprints as well, you're really trying to push those measurement frameworks in a way that showcases, hey, how many people were able to drive to the store? How can you triangulate that information, etc. There's also unfulfilled promises regarding some of the data usability. So over-promising upfront and under delivering.
Sure.
And then overcrowding the space with most networks launching in the past 5 years. So there's saturated environment. So, I mean, I'm not saying this because I don't want people to be thinking about retail media networks and how they play into their strategies. But I think just be hyper aware of there's some that are doing really well right now, and there's others that are still in that build up phase. So just be very hyper conscious of that. That's all.
Well, and your throwaway comment about Walmart being a startup, it's not too far from the truth. Like a lot of these companies have never done this stuff before, and all of a sudden now they're trying to compete with like a Google who's been doing it forever.
Exactly.
Right. And so the software and the back end and the tools and all that kind of stuff, the reporting, all of it needs to develop also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Time for our marketing moment with Mark Bingley.
Love it. So good. I just love that. Okay. So for my marketing moment, I usually pick case studies, but I stumbled across a really great report. And so I wanted to talk about the report. It's a free report for everybody.
I like free.
Yeah, free is really good. It's free. And it's from the IPA too. So the report is called Making Effectiveness Work, and it was published in October 2024. So it's really new. We'll put the link in here as well. And so the idea behind this paper is to put something together talking about how to get measurement right, getting the principles from their research and their database and applying that to your organization or our organization. And it's less about recommending a perfect technique and more about establishing a culture that supports evidence-based decision-making and using the effectiveness principles that are available. So they start with this really interesting scenario, which I'll just kind of like summarize here, which I think is really good. So imagine this, V. Picture yourself.
Should I close my eyes?
Let's say you're leading your company and you've been leading the company for a long time. The company's grown up on paid search.
Okay.
You'd think using last click attribution models, cost per acquisition is about $5. You know that last click attribution has some challenges. So you start playing around with data-driven models, and you figure out with data-driven models, that's assigning more credit to more channels. You got about a $7.50 CPA.
Okay.
Then you hire an econometric modeling firm to do an MMM, and they're coming back with the results saying that the CPA for paid search is around $30, not the $7.50 on your data driven, but it's actually more like $30. And then somebody goes, "Oh yeah, we did one of those things a couple of years ago, and it was actually from a similar kind of econometric modeling company, and they said it was $10." So then you're reviewing your notes and you're trying to figure out what is right and what makes sense. And the point around that is to say, like, it's a real thing. It happens to real people all the time. And this is the idea behind, it's not so much the tools, it is the learning that goes behind it.
Right.
So it's hard. Like getting a real attribution model. Like I was actually on a call today for one of my clients talking about with the bookkeeping service. And they're like, "Well, where do you get all your members from, your clients from?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a hard thing to like pin down." And, how much does it cost to acquire? It's a funny question. It seems very straightforward, but it's not as simple as that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and so the principles here around building a culture of effectiveness and critical thinking is around committing to a learning agenda. Focusing on a group of people who are focused on insights, not specifically data.
Love that.
Yeah, implementing a disciplined approach to measurement. So the model they're proposing is model, experiment, simulate, and implement. So they're calling it MESI, MESI.
Like Lionel Messi.
Like that.
Love it.
1S, not 2.
That's right.
And then be flexible in model building. So understand the strengths and weaknesses of each model. Then run experiments and then incorporate estimates of long-term value. And so the estimates part is really critical because they're harder to measure long-term value, but it's really crucially important to like consider the long-term impact, not just the things you can measure on the day-by-day basis.
Yeah, I agree.
And then when they get into it, there's some really great stuff in there, but there's one particular graph that I pulled out, which I think is really interesting. Looking at the strengths and weaknesses, they have like a little spider chart kind of thing of MMM versus experiments and attribution. So attribution, as an example, really low cost, inexpensive to scale is probably its biggest strength.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, probably its biggest weakness is there's very little causality with that and hard, almost impossible to get any kind of long-term measurement out of. On the MMM side, like probably the biggest strength there is the causality, but less so on using just readily available. You need lots of different data sets. And then on experiments can be super helpful in terms of holistic, in terms of media interactions, but less local, slightly more cost. So there's, the point is there's strengths and weaknesses to all these things.
Yeah.
So I know we slag last click attribution.
Yeah.
Because it's bad. But if you got nothing else, it might be the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like how you position last click too. We're not going to turn this into one of those conversations. Like, I understand there's multi-touch attribution. When you get there, there's still going to be the weightings that are maybe not 100%. So it's still only to be used directionally, but it's the sum of all parts, right? So if you have an MMM, if you're doing experiments, if you have that, the multi-touch attribution model set up, that's what's going to get you closer. Because I love this spider graph, and I'll actually, for the video, I'm going to throw the image up for viewers as well, but it shows exactly where they kind of also play together, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where at the end of the day, if you can get directionally the information that you need from last click attribution, that's okay. Like that's fine, but use obviously your critical thinking, your ability to understand the landscape and how to best approach your media buying habits and not just give search like that attribution. I think that will go a long way.
Totally.
This was a great report, and
there's a lot of really cool things in there, and I didn't want to go through all of it, but I just thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, love it.
Okay, and then you, V.
1 week. Okay, I don't know if you've seen this.
No, I just wanting to play it right now, but
okay,
this is fun already.
So this takes me back, right?
Yeah.
I think we've already gone on the record to say that we're both Gen X. But everyone remembers the movie Ferris Bueller's Days Off.
Totally.
Well, there's a reenactment of that featuring Lewis Hamilton.
That's awesome.
Who plays the garage guy that takes that incredible California Mercedes. Not Mercedes, sorry. Ferrari out for that joyride. They tried to revert. It is so good. So actually, so they interviewed Hamilton, and he went on record to say, Ferris Bueller's Day Off has been one of my favorite movies since I was a kid. This is to pay homage to the iconic film and to celebrate my first season with Ferrari. It definitely took a lot of cost-cutting, edge tech production to plan to get it right. Had to get the exact car as well. It's been my dream car since seeing the movie. Shout out to the legend Edward Norton for coming on along with the ride. This is energy and excitement I'm bringing to the track this year. Andiamo. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And I don't know, he's actually been featured in 2 different commercials. He's done one for Peroni as well. I'll link to that too. But like Lewis Hamilton's everywhere, and this move to Ferraris can only be
big.
Great. It's huge.
It's big. I was in the mall the other night, and we walked by the Lego store, and it's lined up out the door, and they were like taking tickets to get into the store, and they had a guy come out. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And so the guy comes out who works in the store. He's like, just so everyone knows, the Ferrari is sold. And I'm like, oh, it's a whole F1 series.
Yeah,
that's available through Lego, and so Ferrari's already sold out. It's crazy.
Yeah. And sorry, just to be correct, it's the 250 GT California Spider, the car itself. But anyways, that they tried to reverse the miles on, if you remember.
Ed Norton.
That's
Yeah. Kick it over through the window and it falls and it's death.
Yeah.
That's the death of.
The
death of the Ferrari. Death of a Ferrari. That's what we should.
Anyways, all right. What's coming up next week, Mark? What do we got?
Next week, I believe we've got Jeremy Miller coming up next week.
We do.
That one's on revenue gaps. This how to close them. It's good. It's a really good episode. The post pod is. We just recorded that this morning or yesterday. Yeah, it was a really, really interesting conversation, and I think one that's going to be super relevant for a lot of people right now.
Yeah,
over the next few months, anyway.
A lot of practical advice, rethinking some of the traditional frameworks, how you can use them differently to help identify the gap. I don't want to be leading the witness here, but this is it's a banger.
Lead.
It's a banger. It's a banger. You will enjoy it.
Yeah. I think there's something to the afternoon recording.
I think there is, man.
We might have to switch.
We're more loopy.
I'm a little bit loopy. I'm trying to get on vacation too, so there's just a whole little extra thing going on.
But we may have to switch it up.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Good chat.
Hey, this was great.
Thanks for keeping us in your ears.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all,
not you. You listening. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I listen to you all the time.
I mean, like you have to listen to me.
Have a great vacation.
Thanks.
You deserve it.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
We'll catch you on the other side.
Sounds good. Ciao, ciao.